Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. Iran's supreme leader slams Trump's call for unconditional surrender as Israeli strikes pound Tehran, killing dozens. Russia warns the world is millimeters from catastrophe, while Germany urged Iran to seek a negotiated peace. Israel says it's targeting Iranian military sites in Tehran as blasts rock the capital on day 6 of the war. The AFP news agency reports explosions and smoke across east and north Tehran, with roads partially shut down. At least 140 Palestinians were killed in 24 hours, many while seeking aid, Gaza health officials have said. Israel says it's targeting Hamas and reviewing the civilian deaths as Gazans say they're being forgotten as the Israel-Iran conflict escalates. Moscow urges Washington to avoid military action in Iran, warning it could destabilize the region and risk a nuclear catastrophe. Russia, which signed a strategic pact with Tehran in January, has offered to mediate but says it's been ignored. US President Trump will hold a rare one-on-one meeting with Pakistani Army Chief Asim Munir at the White House. The timing follows recent India-Pakistan clashes and may spark concerns in New Delhi. Nippon Steel's $14.9 billion takeover of US Steel now gives Washington a golden share to protect American jobs. The revamped deal follows bipartisan pushback and involves direct US oversight of key decisions. Princess Kate will miss Royal Ascot due to prioritise balance as she eases back from cancer treatment. Prince William will attend the event with King Charles and Queen Camilla. In the latest developments, President Trump left open the possibility of US military involvement in Israeli strikes on Iran, saying, quote, "I may do it, I may not." Speaking during a flagpole installation at the White House, he also slammed the Federal Reserve, calling its chairman stupid for resisting interest rate cuts, insisting there's no inflation and that America has only success. Let's take a listen in.
Say that, right? You don't seriously think I'm going to answer that question. Will you strike the Iranian nuclear component? And what time exactly, sir? Sir, would you strike it? Would you please inform us so we can be there and watch? I mean, you don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble, and they want to negotiate. And I said, why didn't you negotiate with me before? All this death and destruction. Why didn't you negotiate? I said to the people, why didn't you negotiate with me 2 weeks ago? You could have done fine. You would have had a country. It's very sad to watch this. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It's so, everyone thought it was going to be the reverse. I didn't think so. And I was telling them, you gotta do something. You gotta negotiate. And at the end, last minute, they said, no, we're not going to do that, and they got hit. Remember 60 days, and then came the 60. 61 is going to become a very famous number. That was one hell of a hit. That first hit, that was one hell of a hit. Not sustainable, to be honest. That's where it ended. It ended on the first night. Yes.
Meanwhile, Iranian media reports Israel has struck the Iranian Red Crescent headquarters. Multiple explosions rocked eastern Tehran today, with thick black smoke rising from several areas. The blast occurred around 3:30 p.m. and again at 3:50 p.m. local time, marking the 6th day of fierce hostilities between Iran and Israel, amid the most intense fire exchange between the two rivals. Meanwhile, Israel will begin easing wartime domestic restrictions and reopen its economy, Defense Minister Israel Katz announced today. While vowing to continue fighting Iran, Katz says the move aims to restore normalcy, creativity and security. The changes will take effect from Wednesday evening across most of the country. The UK has temporarily withdrawn families of its diplomatic staff in Israel amid the escalating Iran-Israel conflict, and the UK embassy and consulate personnel will remain in place, the Foreign Office confirmed today. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, in a speech on state television, has warned that any US strike on Iran will have, quote, serious irreparable consequences, adding that Israel made a huge mistake and will be punished. Meanwhile, Iranian officials say they will not accept peace or war imposed by others. Let's listen in to Iran's Supreme Leader.
اینی که به ملت ایران بگم بیایید تسلیم بشید حرف عاقلانه ای نیست. افراد با خرد که میشناسن ایران رو، میشناسن ملت ایران رو، میشناسن تاریخ ایران رو، هرگز چنین حرفی رو بر زبان جاری نمیکنن. تسلیم چی بشن؟ ملت ایران تسلیم شدنی نیست. صدمه آمریکا اگر ورود در این میدان بشه، ورود نظامی در این میدان بکنه، صدمه جبران ناپذیری خواهد بود بدون تردید.
On the military front, Israel has struck several Iranian nuclear facilities, including sites at Karaj and Tehran. The International Atomic Energy Agency confirms that advanced centrifuge production facilities were also hit. In retaliation, Iran has launched missiles at Israeli cities, including Tel Aviv, Haifa and Eilat, with tensions between the two nations showing no sign of de-escalating. We now move over to Europe. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky left the Group of Seven summit on Tuesday with little to nothing for Ukraine, except a new aid from host Canada for its war against Russia. But Zelensky had said that diplomacy is also in crisis, having missed the chance to press US President Donald Trump for more weapons. The G7 wealthy nations struggled to find unity over the conflict in Ukraine after Trump expressed support for Russian President Vladimir Putin and left a day early to address the Israel-Iran conflict from Washington. Although Canada is one of Ukraine's most vocal defenders, its ability to help is far outweighed by the United States, the largest arms supplier to Kyiv. Zelensky has said he hoped to talk to Trump about acquiring more weapons. Trump left from G7 saying he needed to be back in Washington as soon as possible due to the escalating situation in the Middle East, where the attacks between Iran and Israel have raised risks of a broader regional conflict. However, upon arriving at the summit, Trump said that the then Group of Eight had been wrong to expel Russia after Putin ordered the occupation of Crimea in 2014. In reaction to this, the Kremlin has said that the G7 no longer has significance for Russia and looked rather useless. Meanwhile, Russian strikes have killed over 14 in one of the most horrific attacks on the city of Kyiv. The Russian army has also confirmed that it has captured another village in the Sumy region. We're now joined by Gilbert Doctorow, who's a Russian affairs expert, and he joins us from Brussels, Belgium. Gilbert, thank you very much for joining us on the programme. Gilbert, this G7 conference, formerly G8, is coming to a close. What have been your thoughts on how everything has played out in regards to Zelensky's presence and Russia's absence?
Well, Russia has been absent for 10 years, so that's not a new development. But as regards Mr. Zelensky, his trip was totally wasted. He was on his way into Alberta when he was apprised of the fact that Trump had already left hours before. I think Mr. Trump's departure was motivated in part to avoid meeting Zelensky and to avoid participating in a discussion of the Ukraine war that was on the agenda for the day. The fact is that this is a meeting of 7, but Mr. Trump would find himself in the minority of 1. He would have 6 fellow members, all grouped against him on the question of the Ukraine war. And that, of course, is not very agreeable or very constructive. As regards his mention of how sad it was that President Obama, together with Justin Trudeau of Canada, had decided to remove Russia as the 8th member of this group. He called this very sad and said that it was, if had there been Russian participation in the G8, then there wouldn't have been a war that we're now fighting. However, these is pure rhetoric. The reality is that when Mr. Putin was a member of the G8, he was in exactly the same disadvantageous and uninteresting position of Mr. Trump presently. He was a minority of one with 7 allies in the West aligned against him, who met privately before he arrived at any conference, and agreed on a policy line which was all directed against him. So in that sense, the problems of today's G7 are simply repeating the problems that existed in 2014, when you had 7 members ganging up on the 8th. Now it was 6 members who were planned to gang up on the 7th, namely Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump is not Mr. Putin. He is the most powerful man in the world. And so they could only lick their wounds and complain when he left early on the alleged reason that he had business to do in Washington that was more important.
Gilbert, the Kremlin has called G7 useless. Ukraine did want to make more gains than it did, but it did produce Canada's massive support, some massive financial support from Canada. Do you think Russia is losing more ground diplomatically or gaining it?
Well, whatever the G7 does, it really is not news, in the sense that they are all aligned against Russia on a day-to-day matter, not just when they convene together. So Mr. Zelensky left, as you said quite properly, he left this meeting with nothing in his hands other than what Canada can contribute. This may be of some small solace to him, but it is no way helps Ukraine to continue to fight effectively against Russia. In point of fact, because of the Israel-Iran war, the United States has withdrawn a large part of its air defenses from Ukraine and moved them to the Middle East to provide some protection for America's air bases and the 40,000 American soldiers who are stationed in the Middle East should they come to blows with Iran. The United States also has reportedly stopped sending any further military materiel to Ukraine. All of this is very bad news for Mr. Zelensky and bad news for his army. It is not a surprise that Russia is staging massive strikes on Kiev presently, as you have otherwise reported, because the air defenses there are very weak.
Gilbert, prior to the G7, Putin and Trump had a direct phone call. They have so far agreed to commence talks once again on the 22nd of this month. What are your hopes going into those talks, given Russia's escalating strikes on civilian infrastructure across Ukraine? Do you think they'll make any progress? And do you think peace is still on Putin's mind when it comes to sending his delegation to Turkey?
Oh, peace is definitely on Mr. Putin's mind, but it's a peace that he wants on his terms. In that sense, he is no different from Mr. Zelensky, who wants a peace on his terms. Both sides are looking for a capitulation of the other side, which of course is an impossible situation and does not indicate that they will reach any agreement until there is a definitive result on the battlefield. Having said that, the meeting between the Russians and the Americans is really about technical matters. It is about restoring the functionality of their respective diplomatic establishments in the other country. Their embassies are operating on very weak level because staff is missing. Staff was was thrown out in an exchange of recriminatory exchanges going back several years. They are non-functional, and the intent is to restore functionality, because you cannot negotiate, you cannot, with the other side, over important matters of geopolitics, which is what Trump and Putin are trying to do, when you don't have staff on the ground manning your embassy.
Gilbert Doctorow, thank you very much for joining us on the program and your insight. We now move over to the Middle East for our next story, where Israeli strikes have killed at least 140 people in Gaza over the past 24 hours, according to local health officials. As attention shifts to the escalating Iran-Israel conflict, Gaza residents say their suffering is being overlooked. Since Israel eased its blockade in May, nearly 400 people have been killed while trying to get aid. In the latest incident, 14 were reportedly shot near aid trucks on Salahuddin Road. Airstrikes on homes and camps in Maghazi, Zetouan and Gaza City, and also Khan Yunis have also killed dozens more, according to the local reports, and the Israeli military claims it warned civilians and continues targeting Hamas while trying to reduce civilian harm. Israel is now working with US-backed groups to control aid flow amid accusations that it's using hunger as a weapon, a claim Israel denies. The war, which began in October of 2023, has now killed nearly 55,600 Palestinians. Many in Gaza fear the world is moving on as their struggle deepens. We're now joined by Ross Feingold, who is a political risk analyst, and he's located in Taipei, Taiwan. Ross, thank you very much for joining us on the program once again. We see these incidents repeatedly happen, reports of these incidents happening. They come with visuals. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, the chaotic scenes of their aid distribution, and reports of Israeli firing among those seeking aid. What are your thoughts on the actions of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation so far?
It's a new organization. The distribution of aid in a war zone is new to them, even if some of the personnel involved have prior experience. And remember, the conditions are just what I said. It's a war zone. So it's very difficult to safely distribute aid in the middle of a war zone while Hamas and the IDF are exchanging gunfire with each other, which they're doing in close proximity to the aid distribution. And unfortunately, it does result in the unfortunate deaths of civilians. I think the United States and Israel deserve the benefit of the doubt, though. There's been so much criticism of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, when at the moment they really are the only option available to distribute aid. But the United Nations and other countries have continued to criticize this arrangement, but that really is the only arrangement that's available at the moment. I think other countries in the UN should cease the negativity and see what they could do to help facilitate the aid distribution via the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation.
Ross, critics would say it's quite hard not to be negative when you see some of these images, and especially some of these figures that are coming out. Reported 400 people killed trying to get aid. We both know that not all of these people trying to get aid are Hamas looters, as Israel claim are the reason why this conflict is going on at these aid sites. What are your thoughts on the reports that are coming out, and also, as you mentioned previously, the criticism that Israel and the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is facing in its aid distribution efforts?
There actually is an easy solution to this problem, which would be for Hamas to disengage from the areas where the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is operating. And if Hamas were to do that, and the IDF was to kill civilians, then the responsibility would be clearly on the IDF. The issue right now is that Hamas and the IDF are engaging in firefights very close to where the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is operating, and unfortunately civilians, they're dying, and that's just a terrible situation. But this all emanates from Hamas. Hamas wants to continue to fight. They want to fight near civilians. They don't want to reach a ceasefire. They don't want to put down their weapons. and that we have a war that's still ongoing and civilians are paying the price.
Yes, and Ross, obviously we have the ongoing, the fresh conflict between Israel and Iran, and the people in Gaza and supporters of the Palestinian cause say that this risks attention being taken away from the situation in Gaza. Do you think that this is going to occur?
I think that's certainly the case. There's only so many hours in a day. We're dealing with the risk of uranium and nuclear materials possibly leaking, depending on what actions Israel and maybe the United States, if it joins the war, what actions they take to destroy Iran's nuclear facilities. And there's a lot of concern about that. And the focus at the moment is clearly on the war between Israel and Iran. And the war in Gaza is now a second thought to what the world is focused on, which is Israel and Iran.
Ross Feingold, thank you very much for joining us on the programme. Always a pleasure to get your insight. We stay in the Middle East for our next story, where in the latest developments, Iran's UN mission says Tehran will meet any threat with a counter threat and respond to actions in kind. It adds Iran will neither negotiate nor accept peace terms while under duress. This comes as President Donald Trump left open the possibility of US military involvement in Israeli strikes on Iran, saying, quote, "I might do it, I may not." Speaking during a flagpole installation at the White House, he also slammed the Federal Reserve, calling its chairman stupid for resisting interest rate cuts, insisting there's no inflation and that America has only success. Trump also says Iran wants talks and urges Israel to continue its military action. No promise of more US help, and still plans to have a trip to NATO. Let's take a listen in.
Say that, right? You don't seriously think I'm going to answer that question? Will you strike the Iranian nuclear component? And what time exactly, sir? Sir, would you strike it? Would you please inform us so we can be there and watch? I mean, you don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble, and they want to negotiate. And I said, why didn't you negotiate with me before? All this death and destruction. Why didn't you negotiate? I said to the people, why didn't you negotiate with me 2 weeks ago? You could have done fine. You would have had a country. It's very sad to watch this. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It's so, everyone thought it was going to be the reverse. I didn't think so. And I was telling them, you gotta do something. You gotta negotiate. And at the end, last minute, they said, no, we're not going to do that, and they got hit. Remember 60 days, and then came the 60. 61 is going to become a very famous number. That was one hell of a hit. That first hit, that was one hell of a hit. Not sustainable, to be honest. That's where it ended. It ended on the first night. Yes.
Meanwhile, Iranian media reported that Israel has struck the Iranian Red Crescent headquarters. Multiple explosions rocked eastern Tehran today, with thick black smoke rising from several areas. The blasts occurred around 3:30 p.m. and again at 3:50 p.m. at local time, marking the 6th day of fierce hostilities between Iran and Israel, amid the most intense fire exchange between the two rivals. Meanwhile, Israel will begin easing wartime domestic restrictions and reopen its economy, Defense Minister Israel Katz announced today. While vowing to continue fighting Iran, Katz said the move aims to restore normalcy, creativity and security. The changes will take effect from Wednesday evening across most of the country. In a related development, the UK has temporarily withdrawn families of its diplomatic staff in Israel amid escalating Iran-Israel conflict. UK embassy and consulate personnel remain in place, and the Foreign Office has confirmed today. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei, in a speech on state television, has warned that any US strike on Iran will have serious, irreparable consequences. He also added that Israel is making a huge mistake and will be punished. Meanwhile, Iranian officials say they will not accept peace or war imposed by others. Let's take a listen in to Iran's Supreme Leader.
ثانياً اینی که به ملت ایران بگم بیایید تسلیم بشید حرف عاقلانه ای نیست. افراد با خرد که میشناسن ایران رو، میشناسن ملت ایران رو. صدمه آمریکا اگر ورود در این میدان بشه، ورود نظامی در این میدان بکنه، صدمه جبران ناپذیری خواهد بود بدون تردید.
We're now joined by Nina Slammer, who's an international expert. She's at Reichstone University, located in Israel. Thanks again for joining us, Nina. Trump has once again hinted at US military involvement. He has this sort of language of uncertainty, kind of teasing, hinting at possible US involvement. What are your thoughts on the way Donald Trump is going about leading the narrative in this conversation?
So thank you for having me again. I can tell you that Israel and the US are collaborating very closely in different fronts, but especially now when it comes to the current war between Israel and Iran. Iran is a threat not only to Israel, but also to other countries in the Middle East and in other countries, for other countries in the world. Now it seems that the US is devoted to address, together with Israel and other allies, the threat that Iran is posing right now when it comes to the development of its nuclear capabilities and its ballistic missiles that can reach different countries, not only in West Asia but also in Europe. And now it seems that democratic countries are determined to address the threat of Iran, to dismantle its nuclear capabilities, its ballistic missile capabilities, and restore peace and stability in the region.
Yes, Nina, Israel wants the US to get involved in this conflict. Is there not possible for a severe escalation in this due to the fact of alliances? We have Iran, who has an alliance with Russia, who's also called for de-escalation and non-US involvement, and we've got countries like China, and whereas obviously with Israel we have Western democratic allies. What are your views in the fact that this possibly could spiral into something much bigger than it is now?
So there is a competition between coalitions of different countries. We have on the one side democratic countries that would like to bring to peace and stability. This is one coalition, and another coalition in which there are revisionist countries that would like to disturb the current world order by promoting an aggressive policy and a lethal one when it comes to destabilize countries that would like to bring to prosperity, peace and stability in different regions. And we know that following the Abraham Accords that were signed in 2020, there were positive developments that were taking place in West Asia. We know that alliances were formed between India, Israel, the UAE and the US, what we call the I2U2 alliance, and also the aspiration and the willingness to promote the IMEC program, the India, Middle East, European corridor, but in order to promote these kind of projects and aspirations, first of all, it is important to stabilize the region and make sure that countries, state and non-state actors that would like to disturb these kinds of positive development will not be able to destabilize the region time and again. And I'm sure that the US, together with other countries in Europe and West Asia and South Asia, would like to see these positive developments. And it is true that Israel is conducting this war since October 7th, 2023. But I can tell you that in the midst of the war, there are still Israeli officials with other officials of other countries that try to promote these positive developments despite of the current war. So first of all, we have to stabilize the region to be able to restore Israel's national security and this national security of other countries in the region in order to bring to these positive developments.
Nina, I want to finish off with asking you about how Israelis are feeling about this new conflict domestically. Obviously, we see repeated protests against the Netanyahu government, whether that's in regards to the war over his corruption trial or the treatment of the hostages still in Gaza. I was wondering if you could give us a little snapshot of how the Israeli public is feeling currently about this new conflict that they have possibly in their future, in their horizon. What can you tell us?
So I can tell you that Israelis right now are united. Israelis are resilient, and I can assure you that with this unity and resilience, Israel will and shall prevail.
Nina Slammer, thank you very much for joining the program. Well, that's all we have time for, and we will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.